I'm back with another video. I am fascinated by the night sky. One of the things that I've always wanted to see in it are the northern lights. So I have spent much of the past year trying to figure out where and how to do just that. So this video is about my Aurora Borealis, aka Northern Lights experience. Here we go. This trip begins with a flight from Seattle, Washington to Fairbanks, Alaska. One might ask, why of all places are you going to Fairbanks, Alaska? My wife and I are in Alaska hoping to see the Aurora Borealis, aka the Northern Lights. After arriving in Fairbanks, we drove to our Airbnb in North Pole, Alaska. Yes, there is a North Pole, Alaska. There's a North Pole, and then there's also a North Pole, Alaska. Don't confuse the two. If you put the wrong one in Google Maps, you might have some problems. North Pole, Alaska is just over a 25-minute drive from the Fairbanks International Airport. Once we arrived in North Pole, we went to our Airbnb, which was a cabin in the woods. Very nice place. It was a cabin with every amenity, including heated floors. Our host was responsive and engaging and gave excellent recommendations. Big up, Sam. I'll be back. As one would expect in a place called North Pole, there's a Santa Claus house. In addition to all things Christmas and more, you can also send a letter from the Santa Claus house postmarked from the North Pole. There's a post office right there in the store. While I am excited about the Santa Claus house, the reason we are in Fairbanks are the lights that shine at night. Let's talk about what the northern lights are. The northern lights are electrically charged particles from the sun that collide with the Earth's atmosphere. Remember that our sun is a huge electromagnet, and it produces energy in the form of sunspots, solar flares, coronal loops, and sunburst. I learned this by going to the Sunspot Observatory in Sunspot, New Mexico, where all they do is observe the sun and solar activity. It was there that I learned about the 11-year cycle of the sun, where in that process, the sun will flip its polar axis. So the North Pole will become south and the South Pole will become north. And as a result of that, we tend to see more sunspots, solar flares, coronal loops, all of that energy released from the sun toward the earth. And what that means for us is a much higher propensity for aurora activity, aka for us to see the northern lights. I don't know about you all, but I am glad I paid attention in science class. Shout out to Dr. Island. Thank you. There were several places that I thought about going to see the lights. Tromsø in Norway, Iceland, Greenland, which I eliminated quickly because it is a very expensive destination, Northern Canada, or Fairbanks, Alaska. My wife said, oh, okay, I'll go to Fairbanks with you. And seeing as how she kicked me to the curb on the gorilla track, my girl said that she would ride with me to Fairbanks. So that's where we went. Remember, this is a natural phenomenon. There is no guarantee that you're going to see them. I have spoken with many people who've flown to faraway places to see the northern lights and came back with images of just clouds. It is not a guarantee. However, you increase your chances tremendously by going to locations in the Aurora Oval. Before I left home, I researched a number of Northern Lights tours, and those tours are expensive. So when I got there, I asked our Airbnb host, can you recommend a Northern Lights tour? And she said, dude, save your money. Just go in the backyard. We are miles away from the city. There is very little light pollution here. So what she was telling me is that all I have to do is walk out the front door. Those of you who have been studying the Northern Lights or inquiring about the Northern Lights have probably heard of the KP index. The KP index is a measurement of the geomagnetic activity of the sun. It is measured on a scale from 0 to 9, 0 being very low, 9 being highly intense, that being one of those severe geomagnetic storms that people tell us is going to knock out all of our GPS systems and kill the internet. What that number tells us is how far south from the poles the northern lights may be visible. So, if you are in what we call the Aurora Circle, near one of the magnetic poles of the Earth, the KP index does not matter because you are already in the oval. The number that becomes important to you is the solar wind, or the BZ number. And what that is a measurement of the interplanetary magnetic field. And basically, that number is a measurement of how many particles are being blown toward the magnetic poles. The lower that number, the more likely we are to see the northern lights. I've looked at all of my apps. They say there is an opportunity to see the lights tonight. I get really anxious, so I go out at 8:30, 9 o'clock, as soon as it gets dark, and I'm looking at the sky and I see nothing. I go back inside the cabin, and the alert goes off on my Aurora app. I got up and ran out, didn't put a coat on. It was 28 degrees outside. I look up, I see a beam of light across the sky. That had to be it. Then I realized, you need to go put some clothes on. So I run back in the cabin and wake my wife up screaming that the lights are out, the lights are out. And she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I put on my coat, I grab my camera, I go outside, and there they are. I have been quite fortunate in life. I have seen some things. This is one more of them. And the longer that I stayed out, the show just got that much better. I stayed out till about 2 a.m. and said, okay, they're gone because they don't last all night. Decided, okay, we're done for the night. I went in. I took a shower, got into bed. The alert on my phone went off again. I got out of bed, put on my coat, and they were more spectacular than the first time. I'm glad we didn't go very far because I stayed out till 5:30 in the morning. It was incredible. We have planned to be in Alaska for 5 nights. This was only night number 1. When you're chasing the aurora, you know what you're going to be doing at night, but there's always a question of what you're going to do during the day. On the first full day, we decided to take the just over 1 hour drive to the Chena Hot Springs Resort. Yes, there are hot springs in Alaska. The Chena Hot Springs Resort, it is a full service resort. It has hot springs, it has a full service restaurant, and it has an ice museum. It is the largest year-round ice museum in the world. We plan to do the ice museum tour and the hot springs in the same day. It is a good idea to do the ice museum tour first, because you don't want to get out of that hot water and you're damp and then go stand in the ice museum that is a constant 25 degrees. The Aurora Ice Museum is 1,000 tons of ice that is harvested during the winter months. These sculptures within the ice museum are from ice sculpting competitions around Alaska. The museum maintains a temperature of 25 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. There are sculptures and several rooms inside the museum. When you first enter the ice museum, you'll see where the museum staff works making glasses for the appletinis that are served at the bar inside the museum. Everything here is made from ice. After the tour and you've been served your appletini, it is customary to go outside and break your ice glass on the ground. On our way back, we decided to go through downtown Fairbanks and make a stop at the Morris Thompson Cultural Visitor Center. The Visitor Center is named after Morris Thompson. Morris Thompson was of Athabascan heritage, people who are indigenous to this area. He was born in the village of Tanana, and he was a fierce advocate for the indigenous people of this region. It is also at the Visitor Center where I picked up a copy of the Fairbanks Aurora Viewing Map and Guide. This little booklet is a list of places where you can go see the aurora without a guide. Seeing as how the first night paid off, we decided we're going to save hundreds of dollars, get in the car, and go drive to these places. There are 9 locations listed in the guide. During the 5 nights that we were there, we visited 6 of them. Fortunately for us, the day that we arrived in Fairbanks, Alaska, there was a geomagnetic solar storm, which meant aurora activity was going to be really high. I would like to take credit for my timing. However, as I said, this is a natural event, but my timing was impeccable. So I decided that I wanted to go see the aurora over water. And as the previous night, I sat there anxiously. My Aurora app on my phone alerted me. I looked at the sky, and there they were. We drove to a lake nearby, spent 3.5 hours photographing the night sky. I could not believe what was happening before my eyes. It was incredible. To the naked eye, the aurora will appear slightly greenish gray. It is through the long exposure lens of a camera that you see colors. The most common color for the northern lights is green. The green represents particles that are trapped about 60 miles above the Earth's surface. The reds are somewhere between 150 and 200 miles above the Earth's surface. The purples and the blues that you see in the aurora, if you see those, are over 200 miles above the Earth's surface. Whatever color you see, they are incredible. The next day, we decided to make the just over 2-hour drive to Denali National Park. This was our second trip to Denali. Visiting Denali this time of year, most of the services are closed and there are far fewer people. However, the mountains are just as stunning. We spent some time talking to one of the rangers in the park. I have visions of perhaps seeing and photographing the northern lights in Denali. However, she told me that although the frequency of the northern lights is high, the Alaska range creates its own weather, and that weather includes cloud cover. Clear sky and the northern lights happening at this time of year, probably not going to happen. And so we decided to make the drive back to North Pole and find another location to photograph the lights that night. The next night we decided to drive to a location called Murphy Dome. There were a lot of people there, but do not let that dissuade you. It is well worth the trip. My Aurora alert kept going off every 15 minutes. It was a clear night, so I knew it was going to be a good night. Most of the people left because we stayed to the wee hours of the morning, and it was very well worth it. There are not enough words to describe the beauty of what we saw. This was our last night in Fairbanks. I stayed out as long as I could. So 4 out of the 5 nights that we were in Fairbanks, Alaska, we saw the northern lights. I can't tell you how satisfying it is when all of the research that I do pays off. Thank you for watching. I really enjoy bringing this type of content to you. And if you'd like this as well, please click that like and subscribe button, and I will continue to do so. Now that I've seen the northern lights, I got to tell you, I'm addicted. So before we get on the plane to leave Fairbanks, Alaska, I am looking at my next northern lights opportunity, and I have decided that I'm going to go see them again during the vernal equinox in the spring. Haven't decided what location I'm going to go to. It will be a different location where I have not decided yet. However, I will figure that out very soon. But until then, I will leave you with these. I will be posting another video soon. Please tune in.